All right. Well, hello. I'm Gabriela Sanchez, and this is my mom, Anna Peters. Today, we're going to be talking about the effects of neoliberalism on early childhood education. We are both former preschool teachers. Both of us have worked with infants, toddlers, and preschoolers in different schools, daycares, and children's centers. Um, but I have worked more with toddlers, and my mom has more experience with preschoolers. Um, so yeah, to get into it, I want to start out by mentioning in her 2018 article, Sarah Howson discusses the significant care deficits faced amongst neoliberal societies. Extended networks of kinship have been replaced with the conjugal family, which consists of only spouses and their children. Wives have found commonplace within the workforce, leaving the care of young children up in the air. So, I know for me, I'm in a conjugal family, well, until you came and moved in with us. And I was raised in a conjugal family, like our household. And then, how about you? Were you, when you were growing up, was it just your parents and your sisters, or was it like.
It was my great aunt who was like my mother's mom because my mother's mom had died. So their aunt kind of adopted the kids. But after they got married, my mother asked her, because it was like her mom, to move in with us. So yeah, it was always, she was like the grandma figure.
And did she help out a lot in the
Oh
house?
yes, with all the chores, with cooking, cleaning, and raising us all together. So it was like a shared household.
Kind of
Because
like we're doing now.
yeah, because we were four little girls, so my mother needed help for sure. hmm
That's cool. Was there anyone else in your house?
Living with us, no. Sometimes, occasionally, we will have my grandfather from my dad's side to live with us for a while. And we never really were alone because whenever my parents went on vacation or out of town, um, we always had our grandparents and aunts like moving in to take care of us. It was always had a great support from family.
That's cool.
Then I had many fun memories of that. Yeah, it just made part of the history together with them, and a lot of memories, sweet memories with them that we shared. It was a lot of fun.
So how would you compare that to like, yeah, I guess how I grew up? Well, before the divorce, I guess.
Well,
Just the four of
yeah,
us.
yeah,
Was
it
it a
was.
lot harder?
Yeah, mainly because we move a lot, and that also made that we wouldn't have family close by. So mainly it was me, your dad. I mean, your dad, and I, and your two kids. So we decided for our family it was best to me to be a stay-home mom, and he would be like the breadwinner. Um, because I tried to work, but we soon realized that most of my income or all my income will go to child care. And my husband and I decided, no, nobody's gonna take better care of the children than you, he said. And I said, yeah, I agree 100%. No matter what kind of money that you pay, it's not comparable, and I'd be missing out. So for the money that I was going to be getting, it's definitely not. And know there is a price on that, but we realized what priority was to me raise the kids. That in the long run, you would see the results of that or the fruits of that. And I'm
Yeah.
glad that I did it. I
I
am so glad
know.
because as soon as I started getting into that field or working with children, I saw so many things that were not right, and a lot of parents are unaware of this.
Because it's hard. You're raising like I don't know how many children at once. I mean, it's hard enough to raise one kid, right? But
Yes,
then to have to raise all these other kids and you don't know their full backgrounds. You don't know what upsets them. Like you have to get to know them first and it can be chaos, especially with the ratios. If there's not enough teachers, too many students, it's hard.
It's super hard. And to meet the standards, the qualifications, a lot of people get businesses like that get more worried about that than what it really is important. Or the children, about all, had to be safe,
Yes.
and that's number
And
one
they don't have a
priority.
voice, right? And even those who can talk, they're still not, they haven't mastered talking yet. So their skills are very limited in what they can say and how they can express what they're feeling.
Yeah, it's very difficult. It's very difficult because basically, from infants until even 2.5 or 3, they're just getting to learn language and communication skills and to know themselves as a little beings, human beings that they are. So if they don't have control of the physical part, the motor skills, like how to go to the bathroom and all that, and they're just learning that. And in the
Mm-hmm.
meantime, we cannot come in and establish rules and regulations and demands because they don't understand, first of all, the language, what we're talking about.
Exactly.
We're like in two different worlds. And it's very, very challenging when a
And
child
the
like that.
ratios is one of the things that shocked me the most because, yeah, the first school I worked at was the one we worked at together in Seattle. And we had 4 teachers, sometimes 5, for 14 toddlers. It was awesome. Like, everyone was cared for. Someone was always watching someone. Like, there was no kid unsupervised. And then I come to Texas and I find out that one teacher can have 11 toddlers by herself.
That's insane.
And so, like, if she has to take one child to the bathroom, who's watching the other 10? No one. Yes, it's an open bathroom, but you can't. And what can you do even if you see them across the room? You're only one
It'll be too
person.
late to stop anything to happen, yes.
Yes.
And then when that situation arises, what it bothered me because I did work also here in Texas and in Seattle. And in Seattle, of course, is an ideal place to work because of the ratios. Nothing is perfect, of course, but that's the closest to perfect. And when I work here, yes, the expectations of the owners of the place are some. The expectations from the parents are others, and our own expectations. So you're trying to adjust all these expectations, but what about the kids too? And yeah, and they play. They use language like for incidents. They happen, quote accidents, but a lot of times are not accidents. Kids are just sometimes they're mean to be mean and they mean to hit, but we have to code it and use a language. Oh, while this child was doing this, another child throw something and it hurt them and whatever. That's something that I didn't feel comfortable with because yeah, if a child bites another child, how is that not intentional?
Well, it's because they're
Well,
very
they're
young.
young. Of course, yeah, they don't know, and there's a sometimes it's a reaction, but it's meant to hurt the other kid in a way
Yeah.
because they don't have the verbal communication,
Mm-hmm.
and that's gonna happen regardless. Yeah,
So I guess the kids that I worked with, they were less verbal. Because yeah, they're not preschoolers yet. They're toddlers. Some of them don't talk yet, and the ones that do, it's very minimal. Um, and so yeah, of course we had biters and stuff too, but it was usually the kids who, yeah, had a rough life at home or weren't comfortable in the classroom yet and didn't, yeah, like you said, they didn't feel safe themselves. So I felt like for the kids that I had that were like that, whenever you spent more time focusing on them and yeah, like I said, the one kid that was really hard for me to love. And I had to tell myself I need to love this child. He needs love. He needs love the most, right? Like, obviously. And it takes time, but sure enough, after a while, he stopped biting and he stopped pushing and he stopped hitting and he became part of the classroom. And it just takes that time to adjust and for them to like feel it, like, okay, I am safe here, I am taken care of, I do feel like part of the group.
So that's a success
Mm-hmm.
story. And then
But
what?
also, it did take a lot of effort on my part. Of course, when he first came in, I was like, what? Why is he's a little bully? Why is he beating up my other kids? Why is he biting them? Why is he mean for no reason? Like you said, he's intentional. But at the same time, he's a little kid. To what like extent is his intention? Like he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really fully comprehend he's not like deeply thinking about it. He kind of just very in the moment. Little kids are very in the moment. And then yeah, he'll bite one kid and then before you know it 10 minutes later they're playing together again like nothing happened. They're very forgiving.
Yes, that is true too.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a little different when you mentioned you talking about younger kids,
Mhm.
and then also talking about older kids, because kids always go through stages, and biting is one of the stages, and usually it's because it's lack of communication skills still, but when they come to my classroom, when they came to my classroom, they already had control of language, and that's a different a kid who is biting because can communicate, and a kid that is biting, which is older and knowing what they're doing. So it's that's why I meant that this intentionally. They do it intentionally. So I have seen it, and maybe it's in a different context. We think it's more like a control. They need to feel control. They're in
Mhm.
control of the situation, and the biting appears. And sometimes it takes a while for them to stop. But we've seen a lot of success with the kids, but it does take a lot
It
of
takes
effort
time, yeah.
and extra work. Really, it's challenging when
And
kids.
that's when you really do need the extra people, the extra manpower to have that extra, like to have that extra energy to give to that child that needs it, right?
And also, like we as assistants too, like we help each other in the classroom because we were four teachers, and so when we talk, if you feel like you cannot handle a situation or you're getting frustrated, because sometimes hey, we're human beings too, and if we feel like we're losing control of the situation, we just call a colleague and tell them, hey, can you help me, can you do, or sometimes they see it and they offer the help. And that's why it's so important to have extra people around, because it's not only that it's for the rich, but it's also for you, for the people who are working and taking care of the kids, for us to keep our sanity
Yes.
and to be able to have control in the classroom,
Mhm.
that everything goes smoothly. Because if we lose it, then they're going to copy behaviors too. So we
Mhm. They
cannot,
feel that stress.
yeah, they
Yeah.
feel the stress. And it's better to walk out of a situation that is not right than to
Mhm.
avoid to escalate. Yeah, that they will notice. So you say, okay, just need to take a break and go outside. And that's why it's so important the ratio to have more help, more hands on.
Yes. Which is why I'm happy that you're able to come stay with us cuz now our ratio is higher. Right now we're 3 adults to 1 toddler, but yeah, now it's going to be 2 of them. Um
Yes, should be interesting
mhm.
to see Junior interact with a sibling.
But I'm like, if it was up to me, I wish that I could stay at home with the babies too. But financially, we just can't really. Because, yeah, since you're here able to help, like, none of my money would be going to childcare. It's all going to the house. And now that the GI Bill is, like, I'm not using it anymore now that I'm not going to school, we can't really make it without that money. Um, so I don't really have the option. Which is kind of sad because I know a lot of other moms too that are just like they want to stay home but they can't. and it's pretty frustrating,
Yeah.
which is how, yeah, this neoliberalism society works today. Um, Families depend on the mother's income financially, and sometimes you just can't make it work, especially like if you're a single mom. I didn't write it down, but there was this one study I was reading, and it said that 20% of families have their children cared for by their grandparents.
Oh.
And then it was talking about how now that they're raising the retirement age, that's affecting the workforce of young women because they don't have that support anymore. If their parents are working, then they can't have their parents care for their children and go back to work. So then they don't go to work because they have to care for their own children. And so, yeah, and kind of like you're experiencing too. Like you took an early retirement. Not that you could really afford it, but since you're living with us, but I guess people who like live closer to their parents and their parents have a retirement, they were able to rely on them.
Yeah, it's unfortunately the system doesn't provide any kind of support because not only for early childhood education but also for the elderly. So that's the two meet
I
at the same
know.
level because I could not live with my social security either.
And yeah, you want to know why? Because of neoliberalism, because they don't bring in any income. They just cost money. They're not making money or contributing to the capitalism. It's just a whole thing. It's pretty sad. And that's
Yeah,
why they're neglected.
yeah. It's the two streams, unfortunately, and it's because somehow we are invisible to society. Like the children don't have a voice, and the elderly lose their voice as we lose income power. So it's really sad, and the way it's structured. I honestly feel like it is against families.
That reminds me. So this other article was written back in 2001 by Jane Waldfogel. She compares 10 nations of the OECD, which is Organization of Economic and Community Development. So she compares them to the U.S. on three major types of policies for infants and toddlers, which is parental leave, child care, and early childhood benefits, like subsidies or like health care or, yeah, like family benefits.
Mm-hmm.
And she finds that the U.S. is lacking far behind its peers, the other 10 countries. So, yeah, there is no federal parental leave whatsoever. So it's all dependent on the business you're working for, whatever they decide to give you. So like now that I have to start looking for a job, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know how much time I can take off. Um, anyway, and at least Dom, since he works for the government, I believe he gets 3 months now, and they just implemented that. Whenever Junior was born, it wasn't there yet. He didn't get any time off. Like he had to take time off, like use his paid time off.
Wow,
Yeah,
that
and then
is good.
like she was born in July, and then finally in October they implemented it. So we like just got the last end of it. Now I believe he gets 3 months.
That is good. Yeah,
Yes,
that
so
is
that'll
really
help
good.
out a
Some
lot.
progress. It's
Mhm.
going slowly. Yeah, me coming from a country like Colombia, which is considered a third world country, but we there they do provide education for free education for young children and up.
Yeah,
You
and
know.
like in Belgium, public education starts at 2.5.
Mhm.
The preschool, free for everyone.
Yeah.
And then before that, childcare is subsidized too. It's based on your income, how much you have to pay. So like some families pay like $80 a month for childcare.
Yeah. And if you stay home mom, they pay you to stay home with the
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Yeah, and those are the benefits I was talking about, the early childhood benefits.
Oh. Hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, we are behind that, and I don't know what will take for them to provide better
I
cover.
know,
I
that's.
don't know what will take to make a change because as we can see, I don't know, I was talking to you about it. There are family, middle income family, if they had 2 or 3 kids, they can become in poverty level just by paying
Mm-hmm.
child care. Because I mean, the average child care is $1,500, 1,000 over $1,000. Now you got 3 kids, you're paying close to $5,000 a month. Who can afford that? Plus all the other bills.
Yeah, I think that was a paper I wrote maybe a year or two ago. That I found an article that said that I believe it was like 1/4 of people who suffer poverty, like are just recently going through poverty, is because of the birth of a new child. Like, how depressing is that? Like, having a new child should be something exciting, something joyful, something like to celebrate. But no, you have to put yourself into poverty. Like, you have no choice.
Yes.
And same thing, like, I find out that I'm pregnant, and of course, at first it's like, okay, cool, yeah, now Junior's gonna have a sibling, we're gonna have another baby, we're happy. But then all the questions come, like, well, how are we gonna afford it? We don't have another bedroom. We're like, are we gonna have to move? We need a bigger car. We need like all the
All
financial
this.
stuff comes into play. Like, who's gonna watch the baby? I don't know. Like, Junior's already a handful. She's a rowdy toddler full of energy. Like, are you even gonna be able to care for her and an infant? And then like, I already know I'm gonna feel really guilty. Like, cause I want to be there, and like, thankfully I was there for Junior because of school and stuff. But
It's okay. Oh, baby. Sorry. Well, so
I guess it's the hormones. But
no, but it's also a reality. Don't I mean
it's
part
really
of it is
sad.
hormones, but it's also the reality that you are confronted with. And you said it puts a cloud in the happiness because you do have to think of all those
And like,
things.
I want to be able to nurse them for a year again. And then like, if I'm working, when am I gonna pump? It's like a lot. I'm gonna have a lot less supply. Like, it's all these different things. And like, I'm just gonna feel bad that I'm gonna have to be away from my baby all day. And like, at least they're gonna be with you, which is a lot better than strangers. But still, it's not me. And they're my babies.
Yes. Well, we see maybe we had to talk and put our heads and hearts together to see what will be the best solution. Maybe you just work part time. That way you won't feel all that stress. And yes, you are, as a mom, of course, I definitely understand because I didn't want to be apart from you. I mean, I tried to put you a couple hours in there, but yeah, it was hard. It was hard, and then your brother never was ready. He just cried. They told me he's crying from the moment that you grabbed him for 3 hours. You were only there for 3 hours, and he said he cried the 3 hours, and they basically told me he's not ready. But today's day, they're not going to turn those kids back. That was 20 some years ago. Today, they let those kids cry,
Mm-hmm.
which I think it's not the right decision either, but they want to because they don't want to push the money away.
I know it's all about the money.
And then it's not only disrupting the other children because the other children don't have peace, can concentrate, can do their work, but it's also disrupting the whole environment of learning. and for us teachers too, you get tense out if you hear a baby crying because of course you want to help this baby, and sometimes these kids just don't want any help, and they want to be left alone. And what we work around was Montessori, and the kids can make their own decisions, and so they said we don't force anything on them. It's pretty much whatever comes natural, you know. And but sometimes things can be difficult. Situations can be difficult, when you cannot console and help a child. It's frustrating.
I know. And yeah, that's why even the people who are caring for them at these daycares and children's centers and schools, they can't even care for all of these children either. Like the last school I worked at here in Texas, I had 5 infants under 6 months by myself. So I would sit there and
That's
cry with
insane.
them. I would cry with them, and there was nothing I could do. I was rocking one, feeding another, and yeah, another one was like throwing up on themselves, and like I could see them. I could wanted to help them, but yeah, I'm trying to put one to sleep and feeding another one still. I can't do it all. I can't
You
care
only
for
had two
five
hands, yeah?
babies by myself.
That should be against the law, definitely. Because, I mean, if you put in a perspective, to me, from the point of view that I can see, that's child abuse.
I know. And then
Because
so
I mean, if a kid is throwing up and you are busy with
well,
the
it's spit up. Like
or
all
spit up,
babies are
even
spitting up,
even the
but still,
situation,
yeah.
they can choke. There's a choking hazard.
And same
You
thing
cannot
with
be
the
there.
one teacher for 11 toddlers, taking one child to the bathroom. The rest of these 10 children are unattended. Like, it's crazy. And people pay like mortgage payments, like, to put their kids in these schools that are horrible. Such low quality schools. And then the parents don't even know. They don't even want to know. They just don't even think about it. They're like, oh, yeah, all these other kids are here too. It's
That's one
fine.
thing.
And they don't even talk to you. Oh, they just drop them off, pick them up. That's it. Not like
They are too busy with their lives.
exactly. Because that's neoliberalism. It's all about your career comes first. It's like, oh, who are you? How much do you make? Like, you're so out of touch with your community. And yeah, you're in these conjugal families. It's just about the spouses and the children. And like, you barely have time for, like, there's just so many things you have to do. And one person can't do it all.
And yeah, we haven't talked about it that not all the situations are the right situations, and not all the teachers are the right teachers, and
Because the standards are so low, all you have to do is pass a background check and you can work with children. Some kids are like high school kids, they don't even have a diploma yet.
they're
And these
working
are
there.
educators, teachers.
Mm-hmm.
It's insane how little respect
Yeah, and there is no
they have.
accountability either. Like these schools are totally, or these businesses, I should say, more. There are more businesses. They're not. They send somebody from the state like once a year, and if they spend half an hour, tops 45 minutes, checking that everything is in order, checking how the the teachers are interacting with the students. But of course, teachers are going to be in the best behavior. You're not, they're watching you. You're not, you're going to do your best not to be caught doing something wrong, of course. And that's not, that shouldn't count for accountability or how, how a place is run to.
Yeah, one of the worst schools I worked at was a Primrose school. I only worked there for like a few weeks. But yeah, it's Primrose. It's a chain. It's like a corporation. They're everywhere in every major city.
What is it, Primrose?
Primrose
Oh
School.
yes.
Yeah, it was horrible. Worst school I've ever worked at. Like they had these super detailed curriculums and activities and everything that the children needed to be doing, but they're two. Like they can't be making these arts and crafts and doing these things, but if they don't do it, then the teachers get in trouble with the administration and the administration gets in trouble with their bosses. So like it's like everybody's on top of everybody to be doing things right. But these teachers have no training, no education on like what they're supposed to be doing. They don't even understand the curriculum, yet they're supposed to be implementing it to these children who like they're just super stressed out because they can feel it too. They were throwing everything, biting, scratching, pushing. Like we had one kid who would bite multiple times a day. And I guess I don't know, the mom had 3 kids there, so of course that was a sum of money, and like she was friends with one of the administration people, and so they would just laugh it off. And like for Halloween, this baby was dressed up as a shark, and they're like, "Oh, get it? It's so funny. He's a biter."
Oh my God.
And yet there's
Yes.
waiting lists for these schools because it looks nice and sounds nice on paper, but in reality, it's a hot mess.
Which it brings me to the thought of, yes, how important language is. Because language and communication, good communication skills sells anything, and people buy it. Whatever is written down, it's almost like a contract. They buy it, they read it, and it's okay. Even people
Mm-hmm.
highly educated, they read, oh yeah, this is a good school because it has so many good good reviews, so many good points. It looks great on paper. But how much of that is real?
Capitalism, it all
But
has to sell. Marketing, you're just marketing these schools. Oh, it sounds amazing, it looks great, like
yeah,
whatever. That's what happened to me too at Junior's Guidepost School. It looked awesome, everything was brand new, it's a brand new school, it sounded great on paper, but then like the more you get to know it, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Oh yeah, all the teachers are certified. That's a question you ask, right? They're Montessori certified. But you don't think to ask, well, who's like certified through what program? Who certified them? What program did they
yeah,
follow?
that's the question that you don't
It's their
ask.
own freaking program, Guideposts certification, that's only like a couple weeks, and like it just quickly brushes over Montessori. These teachers aren't Montessori certified. They don't know what Montessori is. They don't know how to use these lessons. They're not teaching Montessori. Yes, you have the equipment, but like what can you really do if you don't know how to be a Montessori teacher, if it's not like within you and you're not even like these people are just there for a job. They don't have a passion for Montessori, or they're just
Well,
trying to get paid well for what they do, and they're stressed out. But yeah, I guess it's better than other minimum wage jobs,
yes. Wow.
which is really sad because for me, I've always loved working with babies, and especially since obviously you had Jeff when I was 15 months old. He was my baby. I've been super nurturing ever since I can remember. I've just always loved babies. And
Yes.
any baby I see, I love it like it's my own baby. Like
Right.
I was telling you, like at first when I was having Junior, I was like, I can't imagine how much I'm gonna love this baby if I already love all these other babies that aren't even my own. How much more am I gonna love my own child? But I was surprised that it wasn't even that significantly more. Like,
Well,
that's how much I love caring for kids.
it's in
Um,
your heart. You have a call.
I'm just very nurturing. And then, like, at church, they would pull me out of Sunday school to go to the nursery
Oh, yes.
and help
I
with the
remember that.
baby because I could get them to stop crying.
Yes.
And then, like, babysitting. I've been babysitting since I can remember. And then nannying, like, with Marlene and stuff. I babysat in Belgium. And then, yeah, since the school in Seattle was my first school, that's why I dropped out of school because you already know the whole me with the race thing. Because education, I'm there to learn about education, and all they're talking about is race, which that's a whole different subject. But um, anyway, I don't agree with that. And so, like, I just didn't feel like I couldn't find myself in that setting. And I loved that job so much. I was like, I'm just going to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah, I know
But
you're
then I
telling
had
me
to
this.
move, and then I realized, wait, it is not like this everywhere. That school was like the best of the best. The rest of these schools are nightmares. I went from that school, which had like all the resources, all the money, because yeah, it's just UW staff and UW, like doctors from the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
So none of these kids needed anything. They had everything they needed and more. We had all the resources and more. All the ratios were awesome. We would take them on walks. I would do yoga with these babies. Like,
Yeah.
it was so nice.
In the
And we
trips,
in
they
the
do that.
lunches, free
Oh
lunches,
my God, yeah.
hot lunches, like, oh, like,
It was, yeah,
it was the
awesome.
best job I've ever had. And so I was like, yes, I think I can do this for the
That's what
rest of my life.
I had a hard time in leaving that job, yes.
But
So
yeah,
I can stand.
unfortunately, new director, new
Yeah,
teachers,
when
it
that change
changes.
changes, new director and that teacher, there wasn't a good teacher. Unfortunately, I had to leave. There was no other choice.
But so I went from that school to moving to Oklahoma City to be with Dom, and I had to work at a house daycare. And so it was like we had babies who were 3 months old, and our oldest kid was like 10 years old. And I had to watch all of them.
Wow.
I had to cook, I had to clean, I had to do it
Wow, my
all.
God.
I went from that extreme
To
to
what
the
else?
other extreme, and I was like, whoa. But I didn't have a car. So that was the only spot I could walk to in our neighborhood. That was the only daycare around. And I was happy that they were hiring. So I had to work there and at Burger King to save up and buy a car until I could drive to the stupid Primrose School. And then from there, I went to the other, like the so-called Montessori school that,
Thank God you are blessed with determination, and when you put
yes.
something in your
But I
mind.
actually gave up. I was determined, and for some reason in Oklahoma, with the whole Texas pride thing, I was like, oh, it's going to be better in Texas, because we always knew we were going to move to Texas after Oklahoma, because he was only stationed there for a year, and then he was going to get out. Um, so I was like, it's going to be better. I'm going to like the schools there more. I'm sure the standards are better. Like, I was making all these assumptions. Come to find out, Texas standards are even lower than Oklahoma.
Wow.
Yeah,
How is that?
there the ratios are a minimum of 8. I mean, a maximum of 8 toddlers for one teacher. Where here it's 11 toddlers for one teacher. And
I don't
yeah,
even know how is that's legal. How can that be legal?
I don't know either.
How can
And then how
I
they
guess
got
it's each
me,
state makes their
yeah,
own rules.
exactly, and that's what's the problem is. We need these babies need federal rights. They have no federal rights, and it's insane that they don't. Like, these are our most vulnerable citizens. Babies can't do anything for themselves. Um, so I forgot where I was going. But yeah, in that school, the last school I worked at, they got me too with the marketing. It sounded great on paper. I read their because I went to different schools. I interviewed them too. I had my little list of questions because I was tired of working at schools I didn't like. And I finally found this one, and I was just like, okay, after going to I don't know how many that I was like, no, this is not going to work. Um and then this one, it sounded great on paper, but in reality it was a nightmare. And I think the real standard here is 4 infants for one teacher, but what they did was for 2 teachers it's 10 infants. And they had a little half wall. It was like one big room with like a wall that was cut in half.
Oh.
And they had me with the younger infants.
Sorry.
You're fine. On one side of the wall, and then another girl with the older infants on the other side of the wall with 5 infants as well. And that's how they got us to the 2 to 10 ratio.
Wow.
And then on paper in their little handbook, they talk about how they use even lower ratios than required and stuff because they know the power of ratios and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, they were pushing it to the max and finding loopholes to like make it as low as they could.
That is so sad.
Because it's a business.
I'm gonna have to do this.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, this cough, I don't know. It's not going away.
Yeah. It's that time of year, I don't know.
What were we?
I was talking about how schools are businesses.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is the sad situation. And it's all like works out that way because, like I said, they are not accountable. There is not a system that goes to each school and checks what's happening, the quality of the teachers or the directors, the whole structure of
And
the
that's
school.
because it's all privatized. They're all private businesses. Since there is no like federal standards. I mean, there's Head Start, but it's only for children in poverty, which is like a whole nother thing. But what about all the other babies? What about all the middle class babies? What about like, I don't know. It just, there needs to be some type of public, like federal funding for babies and toddlers because otherwise we're failing them. And these are the years where they're developing the fastest, right? Like, it's amazing how fast little babies grow. Like,
Yeah, and these children are the future of the nation. And if you don't care for them, what is the nation gonna end up being?
mm-hmm.
You know?
That's another good article. It's called The Hidden Curriculum. I think it's Anyon who wrote it. But yeah, he talks about how like, yeah, there's different hidden curriculums for the classes, right? So like the lower classes, we're just trained to be domesticated, to just follow orders, to just fill in the blank, choose the bubble, like do what we're told. We're not taught how to think. Whereas like the higher classes and the more elite children, they are asked to like build projects and think and do all these other things that like stimulate that creativeness. And yeah, that's what we're training these children to do. Like in the youngest age, just like sit down in a chair and listen to your teacher. When these kids have so much energy, they need to be running around. They need to be using their minds and just thinking things out and just being creative and expressing themselves in so many different forms. But we're just telling them to just sit down and listen.
Yeah.
Obey. Because that's what we want our future citizens to be, right? Well, in this neoliberalism like world and capitalistic world, we just need workers.
Yeah, and people they stay in that level so the other ones can govern or rule.
Mhm.
They need a little bit of everything.
But yeah, they need mainly
So,
sheep.
which brings me to this question: what make you escape that? Because you come from a family that is not, we didn't have much money.
You don't have much money, but you have these funds of knowledge. And yeah, okay, you're not educated, but since you're both immigrants coming from two different worlds, like literally third world or whatever, But still, like you said, Colombia is ahead in so many other things that the US isn't. I don't know what
And
makes
so
a
is
third world
Belgium.
country. Well, yeah, but Belgium is considered like one of these OECD or whatever countries that I talked about. I think Colombia is too now. But so yeah, you guys being so different helps me see the world different too. And then all of the moving on top of that, I counted it. I've been to 18 schools. So yeah, and that's another thing we talk about in classes, like the apprenticeship, because so when you're for any kind of job, you need like an internship, right? You need to like kind of follow, kind of just sit back and watch, observe like how things work.
Mm-hmm.
But to be a teacher, you've been observing teachers your whole life, right? And so kind of like taking a step back to think about that, like, well, what was my education like? What how does that reflect who I am as a teacher? Well, I have a lot of reflecting to do. Like being in different states, different countries, like I went to so many schools and so many different kinds of schools. I've went to public, private, like alternative. I
A
went to
little bit
like
of everything, yeah.
predominantly black, predominantly white, predominantly Hispanic, like all these different kinds of schools um, just allowed me to see how different things can be, and the impact curriculum has and the impact that laws have. Like, even though Louisiana is right next door, the education is so poor. And, like, even though Texas isn't great compared to Belgium, it's still great compared to Louisiana. Like I was telling you, New Orleans has 0 public schools. That is a tragedy. The fact that they only have charter private schools, that means that the children who don't have parents, who like and they lost their grandparents with COVID and stuff, they're so uncared for already, and then they don't even have the public caring for them either. They have no assigned school, no one checking up on them, being like, hey, why aren't you at school? Like, you have to go and make the effort to register them, to get them accepted into these schools. So many children are getting left behind and forgotten and neglected. It's crazy to
Wow.
me. Um, so yeah. So seeing that, and then also like especially in college is what opened my eyes, because I remember in high school when we were living in our little 1 bedroom apartment down the road from Reagan, and I would ask you, why are we living here? Why don't we go get a house like on the south side, and we can have a big house and a
Yeah.
yard, and I can have my own room and all these things, like, and we can live with people that are like us. I told you. And you're like, no. You would say we're just 2 girls. We have no, like, there's no man in the house to defend us, and like, yeah, Stone Oak obviously is nicer, but mainly the
That was
schools. And as a
my
kid, I didn't
goal.
understand. I'm like, what do you mean the schools? Like, school is school. It doesn't really matter. I hated school. I was always skipping school. I was
I
like,
know, I get
screw
receive all
school.
the notices. Another miss day. I say, oh my God.
But yeah, I
Yeah.
wasn't learning anything, especially coming from Belgium, where school was so hard. I was like almost failing all of my classes. And like, they would literally be like, take out a sheet of paper, and then they would verbally tell you the questions. They wouldn't even write them on the board. They would tell you the question. So if you didn't even get the question, you automatically get it wrong, right? And here it's so like, just, oh, pick a bubble, and like it's so easy. I remember one of my math classes, the teacher would tell us to grade our own work. Yeah, just give yourself what you think you deserve. I was like, what?
What?
He had no care in the world about this because he was a coach, right? And what makes money? Sports. And there you go again with the capitalism. Um, so what else? I guess I
But
was talking about.
Reagan has such a
Oh
good
yeah,
reputation.
no, yeah, but it is starting to decline. But anyway, I didn't realize how good Reagan was until I started going to school and I wanted to be a teacher, and I did student teaching at SAISD, which is not Northeast ISD. It is Title I, which means most of the kids there are living in poverty. And oh my gosh, Mom, like the school itself didn't seem that bad, but to know these kids' situations, they were second graders. One kid literally lived in a tent. His
Oh.
mom had cancer. He
Oh.
lived in a tent. And yeah, like the bus driver would sometimes make an extra round because the bus driver knew that, yeah, sometimes they wouldn't be there at the stop. But and then like they were so hungry, like at snack time they would have raw broccoli. Second graders were literally excited to eat raw broccoli. That's the first time I saw that. And then so I had to teach them this little thing, like 5 lessons on community and being part of a community. And guess what it was all about? Making money and contributing in this neoliberalist society. Um, and so yeah, I was talking to them about money, and I went a little off the little program, and I was like, okay, so if you guys had all the money in the world and you could only buy one thing, what would it be? And their answers were heartbreaking, Mom. One kid said he would buy a big table so his family could eat together. And then another girl said she would buy a hotel because her mommy's always saying how she wants to go stay in a hotel and like go on vacation.
Oh my God. Yeah. How sad.
And that's when I realized this is why you worked 3 jobs and why I worked to help, and why we did all that just to go to fucking Reagan. And that's when I was like, wow. It was heartbreaking. That's when it like opened my eyes. And then after I finished at SAC, that was at SAC, it was time to transfer to university, and looking at how expensive universities were, I was just like, there's no way I can afford this. Here, student debt is just normal. It's seen. Mom, like, oh my gosh, in another class that I recently had, people were talking about they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt for getting an education.
Yeah. Your
And
cousin is still
I
paying her
know, and
education,
she's in
and
her
she's 45.
40s. And in Belgium, that doesn't exist. People are like, what do you mean? What is student debt? What is that? so so for the 1 year I went to school, I was supposed to be a year. I only did a few months until I dropped out because it was business. It was 100 euros for the year.
In the university?
Yes. And you can get a bachelor's. Well, over there it's all mandatory, and like they tell you, like you can't pick your class. It's very different. But you get a bachelor's in 3 years. So that's $300 to get a bachelor's. Here it's thousands, thousands and thousands. And people have to go and put themselves into debt.
And Belgium has the oldest university,
And they
which is
automatically accept you.
Leuven.
They automatically, all you have to do is register.
Wow.
Here it's, oh, am I going to get in? It's like puts so much more pressure on you. And then you have to pay to apply and everything. There it's like, you want to do the work or not?
Wow, it's unbelievable. It's like that too in Colombia. But of course, we had private universities, and of course, those you had to pay. But you had the choice, you had your public ones. And actually, the public universities are the most famous ones and the better ones than the privates. I wonder why, But it's harder to get because so many people want to study.
At the public ones?
And the public ones, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And we do have tests, but I remember when I applied to go to psychology, we had like 6,000 people that applied to enter at that year, and they only took, I think they only were taking like 100 people, because it's oh no, 500 people, because that's how many they can have. That means the 5,500 did not qualify, and I was one of them. And they told me I was short 2 points, but I said, how is that possible? But
yeah, if there's 500, oh, wow.
And of course, over there, too, also, it's who you know, too, sometimes.
It's always
It's
everywhere you
who you
go, yeah.
know and who has the money, and they had their spot. They had to fill out those spots first, and then the rest.
Money comes first.
Yeah, even there too. But but you don't pass in the best because that was the best one. Everybody wants to go to that one. You had other oceans. You had other places that I ended up going to another one that it was not the same quality, but I still got in. It's not like I didn't
Mhm.
wasn't gonna have education. I still got in.
Yeah, and same with me. Like, I guess that's why I didn't really care about high school too much because, like, I was like, I just need a pass. That's all I cared about because I knew I was just gonna go to community college, and at least community college, you just get in. You don't have to get accepted or whatever. And
Mhm.
it's also a lot more affordable than a university.
Mhm.
And since I got the Pell Grant, I was actually able to get money in return and save up, and that's what I used to move to Belgium.
So there are some helps. There are some
Yes.
positive things. I mean, and I guess that it goes to show you that whoever really wants to do something and accomplish it, you're a perfect example
No, yeah,
of
I
it.
definitely think people have the power. If there's a will, there's a way. Um, but it is a lot harder. And that's what I'm saying. What about the middle class people who don't get the Pell Grant? Um, they would probably still be able to afford community college, but yeah, things just it's hard for everybody has their own challenges in life, right?
Everybody got their own share. But I don't know what's going to happen with the situation of the education for early
I don't know
children.
either. Which is why I want to become a lawyer and like study the laws of it more and the policies that could like actually change things. But yeah, now I'm in this situation where well, I need to start working. I can't just keep going to school because we only have 1 year left of the GI Bill, but law school is 3 years. So I don't know how to make that work. I don't know where I'm going to get the time for law school with an infant and a toddler. Um, it's a lot to think about.
Yes.
But, I mean, I'm going to do it at some point. I will find, like I said, if there's a will, there's a way. And I have my struggles that I need to overcome, but I will find a way
I
and
believe that. I
do it
believe it.
eventually.
Look at you where you are already. It's because of your determination.
And yeah, I dropped out of school like what, 2, 3 times? I'm a very all or nothing type of person. If I don't agree with it, or if I just can't stand behind it, I can't do it. Um, yeah,
And that's your strength. That's your strength, and that's what it make you accomplish things. But sometimes it gets on the way too, and that's what you have to learn to balance.
yeah,
Because you are moving still in this system, you know. You are working in the system. The system that you want to start changing a little bit and put your little seed in it.
yeah. Because the system is so deeply rooted, right? I mean, this government is hundreds of years old already, um, and it's rooted in British law, and I can't just let me start my own. Let me start my own federal fund for infants and toddlers. I have to be within the system. I just have to find a way to tweak it. Um, I mean,
Well, but there's gotta be a
we're
lot.
automatically all part of the system by being a citizen, by being born. As soon as you're born, you become a member of the system, whatever system you happen to be born into.
Yes, indeed.
And yeah, it's crazy how. So yeah, another thing about neoliberalism is that it's like it wants like a new world order, and it's all about just like, yeah, like one, but it's kind of like the UN.
United Nations.
Yes, and that just makes me think of like the U.S. and the U.K. and like these are like who founded the UN, and they're all run by the same corporations who like push like who fund these spots like because yeah the U.S. too it's all just lobbyists who create our laws and push for whatever laws. But yeah, I think that's a whole other conversation too. I don't know. I think we've been talking for almost an hour. But
Yeah. Wow. But
any final thoughts?
any final thoughts? Well, that I respect what you're behind it, and I want to be there for you, and I
You
am
already
here.
are,
I am
yeah.
here
It
to
makes a big
support you
help, yeah.
in every way that I can, and it's not gonna be easy, but not impossible. And you had beautiful goals because you had a beautiful heart, and you follow that heart, and I couldn't be more proud of you.
Thank you. But yeah, you're the one who made me. You're the one who created my life and
Well,
put me
yes, yeah.
through all these situations and circumstances and put me through in all these different schools and gave me the mentality that I have today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I am strong because you always told me that I am.
And you really are.
And yeah, like even in my moments of weakness, like in Belgium, the first time we moved there, like, yeah, I was really depressed and I felt like an alien. Um, I feel like since I had my darkest moments at such a young age, I can only go up from there.
Yeah, that is true. Very wise with you. Yeah, I have nothing but admiration for you and the young woman that you had become. Very proud.
Well, likewise. I admire the mature woman you've become.
I love you.
I love you too. Thank you for doing this with me.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yes. And yeah, thank you for allowing me to do this podcast as a final, and
Yeah.
allowing me to express myself in this way. Um, I really enjoyed it, and it's been very empowering. Um, yeah.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you.
you.
Thank you too.